Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Spurs with me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. Today we're going to be talking about the 2-0 victory over Wolves at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is the first win from a home side in this fixture in quite a while. I think Harry Redknapp's guys were the last Spurs players to get a victory over Wolves in the Premier League at home. Performance itself, it was promising, it was better. It's now the third home win for Ryan Mason. The only away defeat he's had in the Premier League is to Leeds United, and to be fair, that's his only away game so far. But it was positive. I enjoyed the game, and I think it was one of the first games in a while where I've been able to sit back and kind of relax. I wasn't worried at any point that we were in danger of losing the game or putting ourselves in a real dangerous position. So we'll go through as usual, line up, we'll talk about some of the match highlights, we'll sum up player performances, talk a little bit about the player interviews afterwards, and just a little bit of general chit-chat. So let's just jump right into it with the lineup. Hugo once again retains his place in goal. On the left, Serge Aurier. There's still no Ben Davies back at this point. He's probably not going to feature for the rest of the season at all. Centre-backs stayed with Toby and Eric Dyer. And then on the right, Japhet Tanganga was the surprise in there. Serge Aurier, it's been reported that he's got a slight problem. He trained all week, but there was something that wasn't feeling quite right. So the club and himself came to the decision that it was best to sit this one out. And they're just going to assess that one day by day to see how we go. Bit of a shock that maybe we didn't see Matt Doherty starting in the lineup, but there's reasons for that, which we'll talk about afterwards. And then we jump into midfield with Lo Celso retaining his place next to Højberg. And I was one of those that was calling for Lo Celso not to get a start because he'd been poor recently, but retained his place in the squad. Ryan Mason's trying to go for kind of a consistent lineup, or as consistent as he can, despite the injuries to some players, which meant that quartet played again. Dele Alli in as the number 10, Gareth Bale on the right, Sonny on the left, and Harry Kane up top. Now let's talk about the game itself. We were on top for the majority of the game. We played really well. Our attacking football was nice. There was good link-up play between the attacking players. I felt we were comfortable at the back, you know, bar a couple of moments. But that's going to happen regardless of who you're playing in Premier League football. You can't expect to go for a whole game without having even one shaky moment. And I do feel like we are very critical at the moment. We seem to want to find any reason to have a pop at the moment, just so we got something to moan about. But I just think that's the way we are as the English. We love having a moan. That's what we do. Especially about our beloved Tottenham. You know, it holds such a close place in our hearts that even the smallest thing can set us off, despite all the positives that we get. But yeah, we were on top from the beginning, really, in this game. I mean, we hit the post pretty much straight from the off. Harry Kane shot through, comes off the post. And if it wasn't for Connor Cody, if I'm honest, Wolves would have been absolutely demolished on the scoreline. I know we demolished them on the pitch, but without him and his clearances, which is a record amount in the Premier League in a game, they'd have been screwed. He was excellent for them. So many clearances, so many blocks. I felt like he had a lot of passion, really. I mean, we dominated them in midfield, which allowed us to get close every time. But, you know, that guy was just putting his neck on the line time and time again. And everything he was doing, it was aggressive. When he was clear and he was smashing it clear, he was going through players. Great performance. So it's not really a day where we were overly wasteful. I mean, we hit the post 3 times in the game. Well, the woodwork 3 times in the game. One of them was from a terrific save from Patricio. But it was just positive. It was nice interlinking play from those attacking players. And, you know, thoroughly deserved win. 44 minutes in, like right before half-term. Half-term? What are we at school? Right before half time, we managed to break the deadlock on that 44-minute mark. And it was a lovely goal for a couple of reasons. Harry Kane with his intelligent running. Højberg with the ball that he sent over the top. You know, he's tried this sort of ball a fair few times this season and it's normally overhit or gets cut out. But this was absolutely pinpoint perfect into his path. So Kane's just inside their half. He's in between two defenders. So they've got three back at this point, Wolves spread across. Harry Kane is in between the two on the left-hand side. And he just kind of pulls himself backwards, arcs his run and makes a slight diagonal run. Højberg looks up at this point, plays the ball. Kane runs onto it, driving through. All the defenders are coming at him. And the clever part of this, it wasn't necessarily the finish. The finish was a nice, tidy finish, but from the distance that he was at, you'd expect Kane to bury it 10 times out of 10, if I'm honest. But it's what he does with the defenders that was so intelligent. He breaks into the box and he knows that there's three of them around him. And in this situation, it's hard for the defenders because one of them has to take responsibility for Harry Kane and make the challenge. And Harry Kane knows that, which gives him more time because, you know, two get close to him. One's a bit further away. So he continues to break into the box on that diagonal. Conor Coady, in the end, he's the one that actually decides to make the challenge. Harry Kane's clever. He pushes the ball out to the right. And as Conor Coady's coming in, Harry Kane doesn't even look at any of these the whole time, by the way. He's just looking at the ball. He knows where the goal is. He's a very intelligent player. He's only looking at the ball. The whole time he's running, head down, looking at the ball, pushes it out, and then just puts a hand out. Just to get enough contact on Coady that it keeps him away, so Harry doesn't actually have to alter his stride. And then from there, once Cody's on the floor, the rest is history. Harry Kane puts it in the back of the net, and there we are, 1-0 up. So the first half, it was very good from us. I felt like Dele Alli thoroughly deserved to retain his spot. He's been a bright spark since he's been back. He looks like he's enjoying his football. And although he wasn't perfect in the last game, you've got to understand that he hasn't played loads and loads of football. He's been in and out, so he's not quite match sharp all the time. But he's trying things. And it's not just when we're in possession of the ball, out of possession. He works very hard for the team. Dele Alli wins a lot of second balls. He creates space for other people. His awareness is very good. So I was impressed with that. And, you know, everybody kind of did their bit in the first half. It went really well. Now, second half we come out, we're still very much on top, which I was impressed with. So we've gone in, and normally when we're only one goal to the good, there's that worry that we're going to do the Spursy and allow the other team back in. But that wasn't the case. I feel like because Wolves have got nothing to play for, they didn't give us as good a game as we would have expected. And as I've said, they've had problems this season. And with Raul Jimenez injured, Neto injured, they were missing a creative spark. You know, the poor young guy up top, you know, he was brought in to work his way into the squad, and he's had way more minutes than he ever would have expected this season. So he hasn't had a chance to bed himself in. He's been thrown in right at the deep end, and I think that really showed in his performance. He didn't look confident at all at times. He was making good runs, creating good space for himself, but just kind of a bit panicky, if you will, and I feel like that really let him down. So in this second half, you know, we're still on top. We get the goal on 61 minutes, and this goal for me is one of my favourite goals of the season. I mean, the finish, it was easy. A bit like the first one where you expect Harry Kane to put it in all day long. Højberg, from there, it's a tap in, really. But what for me was impressive about this goal was Serge Aurier. His hunger and desire to keep this attack going was sensational. So the ball comes out to him. He's bombing it down the left wing, and doesn't quite get good contact on the ball because he's at a stretch. So the ball then starts trickling further down the wing, and you expect it's going to go out for a throw. Not at all. Sergio Reguilon gets himself up, carries on sprinting, makes a sliding challenge which keeps the ball in play and knocks it through parallel. He gets up so quickly, runs onto this ball, heads toward the byline, sees Sonny near the edge of the 18-yard box. He's just inside, so he's about 16 yards out. Cuts the ball back to him. Sonny turns, sees Gareth Bale, plays the ball across to him. Gareth Bale cuts, takes a shot, keeper saves, and, you know, it wasn't the best save in the world. He'd been pretty good for most of the game, Patricio, but, you know, it's a weak save. The ball comes out, and there is that man Højberg to just tap it in. So that is a goal and assist in this game. But again, with the Reguilón thing, it was his desire to keep battling for that ball, not give up. And we know he loves attacking. It tends to be defending where he lets us down a bit. But his desire was then reflected in Højberg. And this is the one thing that I always say to everybody, like young players coming through, even at my age now, when I'm 32 now, and when I play and the strikers in the game, the one thing that annoys me is when players don't gamble. So what Højberg does is, when Gareth Bale takes the shot, Højberg has already started moving. He's fully expecting that that's not going to go in. And if it gets parried out, he needs to be the first man onto it to put it in the back of the net. You know, and most people would think Gareth Bale in that position is going to score 9 times out of 10. But for that 1 out of 10, if you don't make that run, the ball gets parried back out, defender then clears it. Moment gone. So this is why I always say to everybody, you have to gamble. You have to expect that that defender is going to miss the ball. The keeper's going to push it right back out into open play. Like, how many times do you see an error from a defender and the striker, midfielder, whoever, doesn't gamble, doesn't run? And then it's just, you know, the ball goes through, the keeper collects and they play on. You gamble on these things and this is what happens. It puts pressure on the defenders as well when you see yourselves running. So that goal for me was really about the desire of them two rather than the quality of what actually went on. And that kind of summed up the performance. There was a lot of people putting in big shifts doing the running. Gareth Bale was doing a bit more tracking back than usual, but there were a lot of moments in the game where he was very static and didn't join in either the defence or the attack at times. I think he was more managing his minutes. But that explains the whole Tanganga thing, which we'll lead on to. But once we'd gone 2-0 up, that's when Wolves kind of grew into the game. They had a couple of chances and they were quite wasteful. Kind of the way that when we played Leeds United, and as I said, we did not deserve to win or even get a draw against Leeds United. But we had the chances to win or draw that game. The same as in this game here. Wolves had the chances, not to win, but they had enough chances certainly to draw. And they were just kind of rushing it in the final third. The quality was a bit lacking. And that really is what has cost them. But it's one of those where the better team on the day definitely won. So Wolves can't really grumble. The same as after the Leeds game. I wasn't really grumbling that we'd lost. I was annoyed that we'd lost. But we didn't deserve to win, so... You know, it's that fine line of the balance there. But we decided to make some changes in the end to try and control the game. So we saw Lo Celso come off and Harry Winks came on. And it added a bit more stability. Harry Winks is very good at the sideways and backwards pass, which annoys us at times as Spurs fans. I wish he'd be a bit more direct. And he was at times, don't get me wrong. He was at times. But his role at that point wasn't to come in and be a creator. It was to have us keep the ball, keep the game ticking over, which he did fairly nicely. Dele Alli didn't get his 90 minutes. He lasted 81. Ndombele came on and, you know, just did his little thing where he's dancing in and out of players. And I think he'll be gutted that he hasn't really been starting. Lo Celso did play a lot better today, I will admit. Yesterday. Days are getting muddled up so easy. But yeah, Lo Celso did have a better game. But I just wish Ndombele could have some game time, especially with these other attacking players around him. And I love Ndombele when he's deep and he's got people making runs in and around him and he can be creative. He's so intelligent on the ball. His footwork is incredible. And he can use every part of his foot. You know, top, side, bottom, sole rolls. He judders a lot and forces defenders to move one way and then he's able to go another. He's very clever with his body feints and stuff. We saw Sissoko come on as well, but very late in the game. But yeah, that was the game really. We just dominated for the whole game. And as I said, I was relaxed. I never felt like we were going to throw it away. It seemed very comfortable. And it was great to see. I mean, had Wolves not have had the injuries, I'm sure they would have given us much more of a game. And they didn't have anything to play for. And I know that affects teams. But you've only got to look at the guys that have been relegated. So West Brom, Sheffield United, they've actually been better since they've been relegated in terms of the energy shown. And I think sometimes that comes down to the fact that the managers can experiment a bit more. I know Sam Allardyce did. He's definitely been experimenting, giving people more of a chance, because I think what they were doing to stay up was try and go with more experienced players, which is what we're seeing with Ryan Mason. He wants a settled squad, and he's going for the more experienced guys, which is why Joe Rodon, unluckily, hasn't been starting. I think he knows that for this kind of run-in, he doesn't want to take too many risks. I mean, he's already taken a risk in the sense that he's changed the style of football that the guys haven't been playing all season, so he doesn't then want to start chopping and changing the players. And we'll talk about why he decided to go with Dyer in the first place instead of Rodon in his first couple of games in charge. But yeah, all in all, solid performance. I felt like Japhet Tanganga did really well. He coped well. He didn't get forward as much as we as fans would have hoped, but there's a reason for that. So when Ryan Mason was asked a question about why Doherty didn't play and Tanganga did, he was saying that, you know, Matt's been training well, but it was a tactical decision. Essentially, Ryan Mason has learned his lesson. Gareth Bale does not track back for 90 minutes. He will pick and choose as to when he does it. And as Japhet Tanganga naturally is a centre-back, it means he's going to be more disciplined. He's going to know when he can go forward and know when he can't. So he chose his moments in the game. I felt like he could have attacked a little bit more, but he just gave us that defensive cover and shape and held his position. And, you know, they struggled to get past him. And the other thing I will note as well, when Tanganga was in possession of the ball, and this is why I think Jose sees him as more of a right-back than a centre-back, he's good in possession of the ball. And I'm not on about he's good at holding it, picking a pass and moving it. He's good at going in and out of players. There was a few occasions in the game where Tanganga had 3 players around him in tight space and he managed to wriggle his way through. Now, for me, I don't see his future at right back at all. He's definitely not a long-term solution for me. I hope that whoever the next manager is that comes in, if we do get in the Europa League, or maybe in the League Cup, gives Tanganga a chance to play at centre-back and let him bed himself in. I feel like that's the right way forward. So it makes complete sense that Doherty didn't play because he is more attacking like Aurier, and it just leaves those guys exposed time and time again because they're not as defensive-minded. Hugo, another game where he didn't really have a lot to do. So, meh. Again, I don't know what to really say about him. Did okay. Don't really know of any proper notable saves that he had to make. Reguilón was better than he has been recently, and I think he's probably been hard on himself and critical of his last few performances, which is why we saw more energy from him. Centre-backs, Toby did okay. I feel like Eric Dyer, it's another one where, since he's come out and made that comment about fans and pundits being on his back about these mistakes, it's just not going his way. Like, he didn't have a great performance at all. And it was in front of Gareth Southgate as well, and obviously Cody at the other end did really well. So he hasn't done himself any favours there. I feel like he just allows players to run off him. And he's not a slouch, actually. Like, Dyer's quicker than what we perceive him as. I know that for a fact, but yeah, there's just something about him. His concentration, I feel, isn't always the best. He allows players to get the best of him when he shouldn't. He's a strong guy, but at times he just looks weak, a bit unaware, a bit blasé. But, you know, he's great in the air. Like, heading the ball, like, no problem with it. Just seems to be when he's got people running across him, he just doesn't make intelligent decisions at the time. So, you know, I'm sorry, I don't want to criticise our players, but I just feel like, for us, he's not a centre-back. He's he's not at the level yet to be a top 4 centre-back. And I know you've got to play the guy to give him time to get minutes, to adapt. But it's just not working for me. So if we move into midfield, Højberg could have easily got man of the match. I thought he had a very solid game. He did all his defensive duties. He had the assist. He had the desire to go get himself a goal. And he plays better when somebody next to him is putting the effort in. So Lo Celso's energy was better today. But what actually helped Højberg out was Dele Alli in front as well. We've had this problem this season where Højberg has been overloaded with work, because when Tanguy's been next to him, or Lo Celso in the last few games, because they're more attack minded, they have a habit of going forward and leaving Højberg to do too much. And what these two allowed him to do today was gave him a bit more freedom. It's also almost like they were rotating at times. So because Dele's desire and awareness was much better today, it allowed Højberg space and decisions to make, and it worked really well. And if you could keep that up for a whole season, Højberg is a very different player. Like, technically he's good. At Bayern Munich, he was very highly rated by Pep Guardiola. He's always spoke highly of Højberg. And we know he's got the technical ability. And with people putting in shifts around him, we could see more goals and assists from Højberg. You know, there are a few moments where we've seen him get forward in a Spurs shirt. And Ryan Mason actually joked about the fact that, I don't know what he was doing in the 6-yard box. Apparently they had a little joke about it. I'm sure they're not too fussed about it because, you know, it came to a goal. We didn't get hit on the break, so all good. But yeah, Lo Celso, yeah, he had a better game. He was bright. His passing was definitely better than it has been. So I feel like maybe he's getting back into a rhythm after coming back from that injury. It's just been a slow one. And I know a lot of people have been critical of Lo Celso and said that maybe it's time to get rid of him. I don't think we should. Like, the guy is a huge talent. And I think he just needs to find his actual position within our midfield, get rid of the injuries, get a decent run of games, and build his confidence. And I think we've got a fantastic player on our hands for the future. I think we just need to be patient with that one. So, Dele Alli, another guy that could have been in contention for man of the match. He was everywhere again. Winning second balls, good link-up play. He got his cheeky nutmeg in there on the edge of the 18-yard box on the right-hand side, where he kind of went as if he was going to drive with the ball, paused and slowed the whole game down, went to go again, rolled it through the legs, come through some cutbacks. He had a great moment where he actually won the ball back, drove through the centre. You had Gareth Bale running out to the left, and at the time you think he's going to pass it, but you know, there's enough defenders there to cope with the situation. So what he does, he continues to run, but he slows down a bit. This allows Harry Kane to overlap him, and he plays this lovely weighted pass through. Harry Kane hits it, and it's a wonderful save by Patricio. And unfortunately for him, it comes off the post and straight back into the path of Dele Alli, who tries to hit it really composed, but just gets it a little bit wrong, and that comes off the post as well. On another day, that'd go in. But it's just nice that he's getting in those positions again in the box, playing the passes, linking up with Harry Kane. I mean, that's what we've wanted to see for a long time, really. So, Gareth Bale's performance, I thought he had some classy touches, some good moments. Again, another one, link-up play was good. He did do a little bit of a defensive job. Not as much as I would have liked, but it was okay because we had Tanganga there. As I said, there were moments in attack where he didn't join in where I felt that he could have. But, you know, he was taking people on again, which is nice to see on that outside. I mean, a lot of the time they actually coped with him very well, and we won a few corners because of it. But it's just about building that confidence and repetition of taking people on. So it was really good to see. Son on the other side, there were moments where he went missing in the game, but he worked hard. He worked very hard. No goals or assists for him today, and he's having a bit of a funny spell in and out, but you know, his effort was good. He did a lot of running. He worked hard for the team. Good professional. And then Harry Kane, I thought, was another one that had a very good game, and he just came up against an informed Connor Cody on the day, who I felt dealt with him quite well. But you know, Kane, he creates problems, and he's going to keep coming and keep coming. And like, he's had his quiet games this season. Some of them have been the bigger games, but you know, he was good today. And on a different day, he could have had 3 or 4 goals. But yeah, all in all, decent performance. Substitutes, not really much to talk about because they didn't get loads of time. Some of the guys were interviewed afterwards. So Ryan Mason was very happy with the performance. He doesn't usually like to single people out, but he was happy to do so with Dele Alli. And as I said, he was asked about the Tanganga Doherty situation and obviously went with the more defensive option, which I think worked. But he also admitted, had it not worked and we'd have lost the game, he would have come in for criticism for not playing Doherty. So on the day, right decision. What else? Spoke about Harry Kane, you know, what more can you say? And then spoke about Højberg's contribution, which was really good. Who else? Dele Alli was obviously interviewed. He had a big smile on his face. And he was talking about the team more than himself, which is lovely to hear. And he was talking about the fact that, you know, when we're attacking and we're playing the way we're playing and everyone's in form, it's really enjoyable. But yeah, all in all, it was a nice day, and it's a shame we couldn't have done it earlier in the season. It's a real shame that we didn't get that win against Leeds, because it would be interesting to see what the rest of the season would have held for us. I mean, obviously Liverpool ended up getting their win thanks to a late winner from their goalkeeper, Alisson. If you haven't seen it yet, after you've watched this video on YouTube, just have a look. Just type in highlights from their game against West Brom. It's a fantastic header. I mean, strikers would be proud of that header. And they just went mental, the Liverpool players and the manager. And it's a shame for us, really, but we all love to see it when a goalkeeper scores, regardless of who it is and what team they play for, unless, of course, it's Arsenal, Chelsea or West Ham. But yeah, it's just positive. Honestly, I felt good afterwards. And also a little bit annoyed that these things couldn't happen earlier in the season. So that's, 3 wins out of 3 at home for Ryan Mason. Hopefully we can finish the last 2 games on a high. I mean, I don't know where we're going to finish now. I still feel like, regardless of what else is going to happen, Champions League is out the window. I think we can secure the Europa League spot. I genuinely think we're going to do that. I don't really want to play in the Europa Conference League, but it may have to happen. But just some interesting things from that game. We've hit the woodwork 23 times this season, which is more than any other team in the league. Now, could you imagine where we would be if all 23 of those had gone in? You know, some results definitely would have changed in that time. We'd have been higher up the table. So sometimes we may be a little too critical. I remember there was a season where Liverpool, as they started their ascendancy back up into the top 4, just before they got there, they had that season where their kind of philosophy was, doesn't matter how many you score because we'll score more. I think in that season, I remember watching some of their games and they were just almost hitting the woodwork for fun. And had all their goals have gone in, I feel like they probably would have been in the top 2. But yeah, these things contribute to it, and it's just weird how things play out. Had those have gone in, I wonder if Jose would have been sacked, because our position would have been different in the league. But what I like at the moment about what Ryan Mason's done is we're playing more attacking. Like, I don't think he's the right man for the job to be given it. I just think it's too big a job for him, but he's given the attacking guys more creative freedom. And I think the problem we had with Jose was he likes to play his set way, regardless of the players he's got. I feel like there's not a lot of room for wiggle. And then Daniel Levy has to take some blame as well, because Jose would have had his list of players that he wanted to implement the way he plays, and he wasn't given them. But in those scenarios, a manager, instead of being stubborn, they have to adapt. To call yourself one of the best managers in world football and one of the best managers that ever been, to be a top manager, you have to be able to adapt to what you've got. And I felt like he didn't, and asked the players to do stuff that maybe isn't suited to them. Whereas all Ryan Mason's actually doing is allowing the team to play how they're suited. Right, now let's talk about this Eric Dyer situation. So the situation is, and this is why Joe Rodon didn't play that very first game he was in charge. So Ryan came in with a game in the Premier League, and then the next game was the Carabao Cup final. So the reason why Eric Dyer played that first Premier League game was because Ryan Mason wanted his team to play together, ready for the final. And obviously Joe Rodon was cup tied, so couldn't play in the cup final, which meant by having Dyer and Alderweireld together, it allowed them to form a solid partnership to go into that game. A little bit of continuity. And it worked because in the final, those two at the back and Hugo Lloris were our three best players on the day. I mean, a lot of guys were really quiet, but Dyer and Alderweireld had fantastic games in the cup final, I thought. And then because of that, it makes them impossible to drop for the next game, which is then why Rodon didn't come in again. And Ryan has said he's been unfortunate not to play, and these are the reasons why. So he had to go with those two for the first game to lead into the final. They had a great game together, so you can't then take either of them out. It's completely unjustified. And then also on the flip side, we have this. He had a poor game against Leeds, and everyone was calling for his head, saying that he shouldn't play the next game, which almost is true. But then we as fans are hypocritical, because one of the things we really moaned at under Jose Mourinho was the fact that people would make one mistake, have one bad game, and then just be out in the cold, which he did with Dyer, to be fair, throughout the season. He did it with Toby, and he did it with Sanchez. He also did it with Dele, and he also did it with Gareth Bale. They all had their moments. They came in, played well, had one bad game, they were back out the side. So you need to pick your moments as fans, like myself included. Players are allowed to have a bad game. It happens. We as people have bad days at work. But you don't see our bosses going, right, that's it. You've had one bad day. Off you go. We're going to replace you. And I know it hurts because they're paid so much money and we expect them to be perfect all the time. So I can kind of understand why he's stuck with Dyer at the back there. Although I will say his performances just aren't good enough. I don't think he's a top 4 player at the moment. I do think he's Europa League standard, which is quite ironic because that's where we're probably going to be next season. But he's not for us because obviously next season we're going to want to progress. We're going to want to be in the top 4. So I feel like he'd be a good backup. And I heard some people saying on social media like we should get Cody. I don't think that's the answer either. Like Cody for me, warranted man of the match in that game. He was fantastic and kept them in the game. And I don't blame Gary Neville for giving it to him anyway. And he even wussed out kind of and asked the fans to do a survey. But I felt like he deserved it. He really kept them in the game. And I wouldn't take Cody. And the reason is, in a Wolves squad, he looks like a fantastic defender. You put him in the Spurs squad, and I think you then end up having another Dyer on your hands. I feel like they're at a very similar standard. But the difference is, Cody had a really good game that day. Dyer had an average game. Dyer, on a good day, I feel is actually better than Cody. And I know they played 4 at the back, Wolves, which meant Cody was in a back 2. And he coped with it quite well. But I don't see him as a back 2 kind of guy full time. I think he's better in a back 3. And that is the same for Dyer. I feel like Dyer would be better suited to a back 3. And if I had my way at Spurs, with the current crop of players we have available, if you're going purely on just experienced players at the back, for me you would have to play Alderweireld on the right of the 3, Dyer in the centre of the 3, and then you would use Davies as the left-sided centre-back, which he plays for Wales and plays very well. I feel like this is actually his strongest position. But then if you're going to mix and match stuff, there's no reason Tanganga or Rodon or Sanchez could all fit into that somewhere. So yeah, that's the situation with Eric Dyer. And I know there's going to be lots of frustration out there and loads of people annoyed about it, but that is the situation. And from a managerial point, it makes sense. I completely get why Ryan Mason's doing it. He's kind of protecting the player and protecting himself. So that's what we have with that. Now, just a couple of little things as well. There's been more links with players and managers. We're being linked with Hansi Flick, who's obviously left his role as Bayern Munich manager, or will at the end of the season, and then Nagelsmann is going in. Now, everybody thought he was leaving Bayern Munich to become Germany manager. Apparently, Daniel Levy wants him at Spurs. Now, I don't know how much of that is paper talk again. There's a lot of reports coming out as well, pretty much saying that he is going to the German national squad. So I don't know what to believe. And also, if he does come in, is he going to want to come to a club where Daniel Levy is not going to give him the money? Because let's face it, he's not. We've got to make a lot of money back from the losses from COVID. Players are going to be hard to sell. Like, there's a lot of players we need to go out the door. We've got to worry about the homegrown situation when we bring players in. And Tottenham is going to be a project. It's like when Pochettino came in, he had to get rid of a lot of players and kind of start afresh. I don't know if a manager like Flick is going to want to come in, not have the budget and have to rebuild. That is a lot to ask. And then expect him to qualify for a Champions League spot next season. So, yeah, I think that one could just be a bit of paper talk. Maybe trying to push through the national team appointment quicker. I mean, I don't know on that one. But in terms of players, things that we need, I mean, we need a starting right back as well. Serge Aurier has been linked with a few clubs. Apparently PSG want him back. He's been linked with Real Madrid as well. I don't want to say that he wouldn't suit it. I think he'd suit the Spanish league. You don't have to be as defensively sound as you do within the Premier League. So, you know, that one could happen. We've obviously got Ryan Sessegnon to come back, Oliver Skipp to come back. Troy Parrott, I would assume, would go out on another loan. But, like, Lamela, he's got a year left on his contract, so potentially he could go. I think had Mourinho stayed, you probably would have seen them extend Lamela's contract by a year, but a new manager may let him go, and Daniel Levy's certainly going to want to get a bit of cash in the door for him. Who else? Harry Winks. I feel like his time's kind of done at Spurs. You know, I like the guy. I just think with Skip coming back as well, it's going to be too much. Sissoko, I should imagine, will go out the door, although we're not going to get a lot of money from him for him now based on his age. And he cost us so much money. Yeah, so I'd expect him to go. Gareth Bale, I'd love to see him back, and I think what he could do with fans in the stadium will definitely take him onto another level. I'd keep Dele Alli. Lo Celso I'd definitely keep hold of. Højbjerg, that's a no-brainer. Toby Alderweireld, he's another one that could potentially go, because I feel like he's the oldest of our centre-backs. He's going to be the cheapest for other clubs to buy. So I feel like he could go out the door. Dyer, I think, will want too much money for because he's English, and clubs always ask for way too much money for English players. So yeah, I think that's the situation. It's going to be a massive overhaul after the Euros. But yeah, on to the next game. Hopefully we can win the last couple, have a good end to the season. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Stay safe, and as always, guys, come on you Spurs.